All right, this is Unit 2, Lesson 6, adding and subtracting unlike fractions. So last time we talked about adding and subtracting like fractions, so where they had the same denominator. Here they don't have the same denominator, so you have to come up with a common denominator in order to solve these fractions. So our lesson essential question is, what happens when you add, subtract, multiply, and divide rational numbers? And in this lesson, we're going to learn to add unlike fractions and subtract unlike fractions. So when I add unlike fractions, to add fractions with unlike denominators, I rename the fractions with the common denominator. Then add and simplify as with like fractions. So for 2/3 plus 1/2, I have 2/3 times 2 over 2, with plus 1/2 times 3 over 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, your denominator, you also have to do the top or the numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. Notice here I have 6 and 6. Okay, so they now have a common denominator. So now I add 4 plus 3, which gives me 7, 7, 6, or 1 and 1, 6. Unlike fractions are fractions with different denominators. So use the least common multiple of the denominators to rename the fractions before adding them. So example 1, find 3/5 plus 1/3. Write in simplest form. So my common denominator is going to be 15, because 5 times 3 is 15. You can always multiply your denominators together to give you a quick common denominator. Sometimes there'll be a smaller one, but if you're having problems finding one, you can always multiply them together. That will give you a denominator that they both have in common. So for 5 and 3, it's 15. I multiplied my first fraction by 3 over 3 and my second fraction by 5 over 5. Because 3 times 5 is 15 and 5 times 3 is 15. Okay? That gives me 9/15 and 5/15. So I add them together. 9 plus 5 is 14, so 14/15. Okay? So let's try it. I have 1/6 plus 3/4. So my common denominator for this one is going to be 12. So for that first fraction, 6, I multiplied that by 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. And then for 3/4, 4 times 3 gives me 12. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so that's 2/12 plus 9/12. So I add it together. So I get 11/12. Remember that the denominator when you're adding fractions doesn't change. It stays 12. Okay, so it stays whatever denominator it is. 11/12. I can't simplify that any further. So that's my answer. Okay. For B, I have 2/7 plus 3/14. 7 times 2 gives me 14, so I can leave this one alone. So my new denominator is going to be 14. 7 times 2 is 14, so 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3/14. Well, 4 plus 3 is 7. Again, my denominator stays the same, so I have 7/14. I can simplify by dividing by 2, top and bottom by 2. So that, sorry, by 7, not by 2. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. So for B, I get 1/2. For C, I have 2/5 plus 3/10. So my common denominator is 10. I don't have to do anything with my second fraction. I'm just going to leave it alone. 5 times 2 gives me 10, so 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7, so 7/10. Okay. Then I have 3/8 plus 5/24. 8 times 3 gives me 24. So 8 times 3 is 24, 3 times 3 is 9. And then the 5/24 stays the same because 24 is already my common denominator. 9 plus 5 is 14. So I have 14/24. I can divide both of these by 2. So when I do that, when I divide by 2, 14 divided by 2 is 7. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So 7/12 is my answer. For example 2, find each sum, write in simplest form. So I have -5/6 plus 1/8. Again, I'm just going to ignore the negative sign to start with, and I'm going to find a common denominator. In this case, my common denominator is 24. Okay. You can also use 48. You'll just have more to simplify at the end. Okay. So I multiply negative 5 6 times 4/4, which gives me negative 20 over 24. And 1/8 times 3 over 3, which gives me 3 over 24. Then I add together. Negative 20 plus 3 is negative 17 over 24, which can't simplify any further. Okay. For B, I have negative 3/10 plus negative 5 3/4. Change this negative 5 3/4 into a mixed fraction. From a mixed fraction to an improper fraction. So 4 times 5 is 20 plus 3 is 23. So I have negative 3/10 plus negative 23/4. I'm going to multiply and come up with a common denominator of 20. So my first fraction I multiplied by 2 over 2, which gives me negative 6 over 20. My second fraction I'm going to multiply by 5 over 5, which gives me negative 115 over 20. So negative 6 plus negative 115 is negative 121. And then it's still over 20. 20 goes into 121 6 times with 1 left over. So I have negative 6 and 1/20. All right, so let's try it. I have 3 3/4 plus 5/14. So I'm going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. So I have 15/4 plus 5/14. Let's see, common denominator is, I want to say 28. 4 times 7. Yep. Okay, so 4 times 7 gives me 28. So this one I'm multiplying by 7. And this one I'm multiplying by 2. Okay, so my common denominator is 28. So 15 times 7 is 105. 5 times 2 is 10. 105 plus 10 is 115. So I have 115 over 28, which also equals 28 goes into 115 4 times, with 3 left over, so 4 and 3 28. Okay. For B, I have negative 6 8/9 plus 7 and 5/12. So 9 times 6 is 54, plus 8 is 62. So this gives me 62 over 9, and it's still negative. Okay, and then 7 and 5/12. 12 times 7 is 84, plus 5 is 89. So 89 over 12, and that's positive. So then I'm going to come up with a common denominator. 12 and 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. So times 3, and then this one's going to be times 4. Okay, when I do that, I get 36 as my common denominator. Negative 62 times 4 is negative 248. And then 89 times 3 is 267. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add those. So 267 minus 248 is 19. So I have 19 over 36. And that is as simplified as possible. So I'm done with that one. 2C is 3 3/5 plus negative 4 5/6. So I'm going to change these to improper fractions. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 3 is 18. So I have 18/5 plus 6 times 4 is 24. Plus 5 is 29. So plus a negative 29/6. Common denominator is 30. Okay, so I multiplied this one by 6. So 18 times 6 is 108. And then 6 times 5 is 30. So 29 times 5 is negative 145. So 108 plus a negative 145 is negative 37 over 30, which also equals negative 1 and 7/30. Subtract unlike fractions. To subtract fractions with unlike denominators, rename the fractions with a common denominator, then subtract and simplify as with like fractions. So the rule for subtracting fractions with unlike denominators is similar to the rule for addition. Find each difference, write in simplest form. 3/8 minus 3/4. Again, come up with a common denominator and then subtract like you would with like fractions. So my common denominator is 8. So I multiplied my second fraction by 2. So I have 3/8 minus 6/8. 3 minus 6 is negative 3. So negative 3 over 8. Remember, keep your denominator the same. 9 3/5 minus 7 2/3. Again, I want to change mixed numbers into improper fractions. It'll make your life easier. Okay, so when you do that, you get 9 3/5 becomes 48/5, and 7 2/3 becomes 23/3. I come up with a common denominator, which happens to be 15. Multiply by 3, multiply the second fraction by 5. So I get 144 over 15 minus 115 over 15, and then I subtract, which gives me 29 over 15, and change to a mixed number, which is 1 and 14/15. All right, so let's try it. 3/4 minus 8/9. So my common denominator is going to be 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, 28, 32, 36. Okay, so I multiplied this one by 9. 9 times 3 is 27 over 36 minus 8 times 4 is 32. So 27 minus 32 is negative 5. So this is negative 5, 36. For B, I have 7 1/6 minus 6 5/8. So again, I want to change my mixed numbers into improper fractions. 7 times 6 is 42, plus 1 is 43 over 6. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 5 is 53. So 53 over 8. I want to come up with a common denominator, which is 24. Okay. 6 times 4 is 24, so 43 times 4 is 172. And then 8 times 3, so 50. So 6 times 53, or 3 times 53 is 159. So I have 172 minus 159, which gives me 13 over 24. For C, I have 5 1/3 minus a negative 4 5/9. So again, I want to change these into improper fractions. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So I have 16/3 minus 9 times 4 is 36, plus 5 gives me 41. So minus a negative 41/9. Need to come up with a common denominator, which is going to be 9. So I multiply this by 3. 16 times 3 is 48. So I have 48 ninths. Okay. Minus a negative becomes a positive, so really I'm adding. And this one stays the same. So 48 plus 41 gives me 89. So 89 ninths, which becomes 9 with 8 left over. So 9 and 8 ninths. Example 4, to set up a computer network in an office, a 100-foot cable is cut and used to connect the 3 computers to serve as shown. How much cable is left to connect the 3rd computer? So I have a 100-foot cable, and I'm going to add 19.19 1/8 plus 40 3/4. I'm going to come up with a common denominator for that. So I have 59. When I do that, I get 59 7/8. And then I'm going to subtract 100 minus 59 7/8. So I can change 100 to 99 8/8. Because remember, 8 over 8 is 1. So minus 59 7/8, which gives me 40 1/8. You, of course, can change these into mixed numbers. So when you do that, from mixed numbers to improper fractions, so 100 would actually become 800 over 8, which would give you the same exact answer. Okay, so let's try it. At a recent frog jumping contest, the winning frog jumped 21 1/3 feet. The second place frog jumped 20 1/2 feet. How much further did the first place frog jump? So I'm going to take 21 1/3 minus 20 1/2. Okay, so you can change both into from mixed numbers into improper fractions, which is what I'm going to do. So 21 times 3 is 63 plus 1 is 64. So 64 over 3. And then 20 times 2 is 40 plus 1 is 41. So 41 over 2. I'm going to find a common denominator, which is 6. So I multiplied this one by 2. So 64 times 2 is 128. And then 2 times 3 gives me 6. So 41 times 3 is 123. Okay, then I subtract 128 minus 123 is 5. So 5, 6 is my answer. And that is the end of Unit 2, Lesson 6.